Welcome to Boo You Gore. I'm Jade.
And I'm Annetta. Think of us as your unqualified haunted house tour guides through true crime.
We'll point out the cobwebs of bad alibis, the skeletons no one meant to find, and try not to get lost in the dark ourselves.
So grab your flashlights and stay close. Every crime scene has a ghost.
And you need a creepy laugh for October, right?
Why did we both just perfectly go into that? That was so good.
That was obviously meant to be. It was meant to be.
I love that we just always one take it.
So good. It's October.
Yay! I love that my entire TikTok feed is now Halloween.
Right? I kind of wish that we had like the whole Halloween in fall thing, because all the oranges and stuff, the
just
leaves
like
and the
cozy,
pumpkin,
hot drinks.
How good. Because have you ever tried pumpkin spice latte?
No, I haven't.
Me either. But they go so crazy about them. That's going to be our mission. Next recording session, I'm bringing us a pumpkin spiced something.
See, I feel like it'd just be heavy on the cinnamon, that sort of flavour. I don't know how you'd mix that. Like, how does a pumpkin... I just think of pumpkin soup.
Pumpkin doesn't come across as like a sweet for me. It's a savoury. But it's a sweet savoury.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, we'll try something. But for us, October is warmer. Maybe I'll just get a few different things and we'll try different things.
Yes.
And see if we like them or if we're not American enough to appreciate it.
To enjoy that because we're not in fall or autumn as us.
Because what are we, spring?
Yes, spring. Yeah.
Yes.
Good old spring.
Spring has sprung.
Spring has sprung. It's been it's been raining on and off the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's been terrible.
It has been. Especially just went to Sydney and it was like 30 degrees almost every day. It was beautiful.
It's supposed to be 30 on Sunday.
I did see that.
I'm so excited.
I'm pumped.
I'm so excited.
And it's a long weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So I get Monday off. Well, you get Monday off anyway.
How good. How good. It's a good time to be in South Australia.
Sure is.
Unless, of course, it's 1842 and you are Elizabeth Woolcock. Because then, if you're in South Australia, you'd be hanging. Segue.
that was a good one. Smooth. No bumpy road on that one.
Although I failed because she was born in 1842. She didn't hang in 1842, but
close enough.
So that obviously leads us into today's case. Elizabeth Woolcock, the only female to ever be hanged in South Australia.
That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe it was for something crazy.
Not really. It's kind of a bit of a miscarriage of justice, I would say. Obviously she wouldn't be hanged in today's standards anyway, because we don't do that anymore. But I don't think she would have even done much jail time
if any.
Today's time, if any. So on the 10th of April 1848, Elizabeth Lillian Oliver would be born to her parents John and Elizabeth Oliver, who were Cornish immigrants who settled in the Burra dugouts in Burra, South Australia.
Sorry. Say Burra again.
One more time. So they'd only moved here in 1842, and then in 1851 a flash flood would see the dugouts become unlivable and the family would move on to Ballarat, Victoria, with John attempting to strike it rich during the gold strike of that year. Shortly after their move, Elizabeth and John's second child would die. That, combined with the hatred of living in Ballarat, would cause Mrs. Oliver to abandon her husband and her then 4-year-old daughter Elizabeth, and she would return to Adelaide and find a new lover. Mrs. Oliver would describe Ballarat as a horrid, sin-stained colony of scoundrels and villains. So you know the perfect place to abandon a child. When I wrote this, I was calling everyone a scoundrel and a villain for the next 3 days. I walked into work and I was like, scoundrels and villains, the lot of you.
It sounds so like pirates and...
Right. So Elizabeth would not see nor hear from her mother again until she was 18 years old. So sadly, 4-year-old Elizabeth would be left alone a majority of the time while her father worked to support them both. 1854, when Elizabeth was just 7 years old, she would again be traumatised after witnessing the brutal killing of her father's friend Henry Powell. The killing was said to have taken place as an act of retaliation for the rebellion brought on by the Eureka Stockade. A policeman slashed Powell across the face, while several other policemen took to him with fists, batons, and guns, shooting the beaten man as he laid on the ground before mounting their horses and forcing them to trample him into the ground for what was described as quite some time. Now, as hard as that was to hear, imagine witnessing it.
I was about to say.
Yep. And knowing, it's the police doing that. So there's nothing you can do. No one can help him. No one can defend him.
Listen.
They've just got to stand there and watch this man be trampled into the ground by horses.
Jesus.
So that same year, the lack of supervision and ease of access would lead to poor Elizabeth being so brutally raped and left for dead in a ditch. Elizabeth would survive her injuries but was unable to ever have children due to the amounts of gynecological damage done to the child during the rape. The event, while physically harming her, also damaged her severely psychologically. So the 7-year-old was prescribed opium to help with both pain and melancholy. Young Elizabeth would very quickly become dependent on that opium. Imagine living in a time where it was like, you know what, just do opium about it. Like, it's all right.
Well, better than a lobotomy.
Well, true. So on February 7th, 1857, John Oliver would succumb to the effects of consumption after an illness of just a few weeks, leaving now 9-year-old Elizabeth an orphan for all intents and purposes. So at 9 years old, an opium-addicted Elizabeth had to earn a living for herself. She was put into service at a pharmacist in Melbourne. This was ideal for her, as not only did this provide her a living, it provided her unlimited and unmonitored access to copious amounts of opium. At 9 years old. At 15, she moved back to Ballarat after gaining employment at a guest house. Elizabeth had planned well in advance and made the move with a massive quantity of opium that she had accumulated in her 6 years at the pharmacy. It was later discovered that Elizabeth would use this stockpile to supply local prostitutes who would slip it to their more abusive clients to sedate and rob them, paying Elizabeth for the privilege. So she was kind of a crook really young.
Yeah, Jesus. Wow.
Just have a... How do you even take opium? I don't know. I should have looked that up. Question. I don't know if it's like a...
Let me Google.
Is it like a pill or something?
Because I'm trying to think... I don't know why I think of smoke.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too.
How do you consume? Smoked, eaten raw, or as a pill.
So they could have slipped it to him anyway. Well, there you go.
Can be injected. Yeah, pretty much anyway.
So it doesn't matter as long as you get it into your body.
Wow.
So in 1865, a now 18-year-old Elizabeth would receive news that her mother was still alive and was in fact looking for her daughter. It had been sent that she lived in Moonta. I don't know why everything had two names back then, because it's now just Moonta. And Elizabeth would leave the Ballarat township to reunite with her only living family member. Upon arrival, she discovered her mother had remarried and she settled into the home with her mother and new stepfather. A slight glimpse at a normal life for the young adult. Elizabeth quickly found work as a housekeeper and would teach Sunday school on weekends. She even managed to kick her opium habit. So, like, massive difference once she got away from Ballarat. This may have been because in South Australia, you needed a doctor's prescription to get hold of opium as opposed to the eastern states where it was freely available. But nonetheless, Elizabeth was finally drug-free and working in a respectable field and living in a home seemingly normal and full of love. Elizabeth's new stepfather loved the girl like his own and was said to fiercely protect her at all costs. Sadly, in 1866, Elizabeth would be dismissed from her job as a household cleaner when one of the family's relatives moved over from England and took over the role. So sometime around 1864, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Woolcock and their two sons would emigrate from Cornwall and settle in Moonta. However, in 1865, both Mrs. Woolcock and the couple's youngest son would contract fever, and by the following year, both of them would have succumbed to the illness, leaving Thomas and his namesake son to fend for themselves. Mr. Woolcock would advertise for a live-in housekeeper who would also be required to care for Thomas Jr. This leads us to 1866, when Elizabeth found herself suddenly unemployed. She replied to the advertisement and began working for Thomas Woolcock and immediately moved into the home. Her stepfather was very open about his opinions of Thomas Woolcock, who was viewed as an abusive drunk. He considered the live-in situation scandalous, and he actually threatened to disable Elizabeth if she continued the arrangement. He would not stand for his reputation being tarnished by the rumour of his stepdaughter living with an unmarried man. Not wanting to lose what was clearly working for him or to succumb to gossip and rumour, Thomas married 20-year-old Elizabeth in the front parlour of his cottage home merely 7 short weeks after meeting for the first time. What a time.
What?
Like, you've got to marry someone so that they can work in your home because there can't be two people living in the home that aren't married to each other.
Yeah, because that's so scandalous.
Yeah, so I'll just marry the help so people stop talking.
Yeah, because that makes more sense.
You would think they would talk even more because they'd be like, he married his maid.
She's just with him for money.
She just took the job so she could be married because no one else wants her. Like, what a time. So at around this time, Elizabeth's parents left Moonta and moved to Adelaide. The now Mrs. Woolcock, Elizabeth, would go on to learn quite quickly that her stepfather was very correct about Thomas. He was abusive, violent, a bully, a drunk, and a wife beater. Elizabeth would try to leave many times, but he would always find her and drag her home, kicking and screaming if needed. Desperate for escape and having no family nearby, Elizabeth attempted suicide by hanging. However, the rafter she used broke, sparing her life.
What a trip.
Right?
Like, considering how she...
Right? This poor girl's only 20 and she's like...
been through a
life,
lot.
right? So around this time, Elizabeth was prescribed morphine to treat insomnia and melancholia. Sadly, she became addicted to the morphine that was intended to help her. At some stage, the couple took in a boarder, and while he was there, the abuse Elizabeth suffered at the hands of her husband lessened. Just him being in the home reduced Thomas's outbursts. So obviously he was another one of those guys that was like, all for punching a woman out, but couldn't stand up to a bloke. This, however, wouldn't last long, as Thomas and the boarder would have a disagreement, and after an altercation, the boarder left the Woolcock home. Shortly after he left, the family dog belonging to the Woolcocks mysteriously died. He appeared to have been poisoned, and Thomas was very quick to point the finger at his previous boarder as some sick, twisted form of revenge. Around this time, the doctors and chemists would refuse to provide Elizabeth with morphine any longer, and she began suffering severe withdrawal symptoms. To ease them, she would send Thomas Jr. to the pharmacies with handwritten notes claiming to require morphine to remove ink stains from clothing. The fuck?
Getting creative.
Yeah, right? Her desperate attempts to acquire the drug became very common knowledge within the colony, subsequently making it harder and harder for her to get hold of. So around a month after the death of the family pet, Thomas would begin complaining of severe stomach pains and nausea. Elizabeth would contact 3 separate doctors to treat her husband, each one diagnosing and prescribing something different. Dr. Bull would diagnose a sore throat and prescribe treatment in the form of a syrup and pills laced with 1/3 of a grain of mercury. Woolcock became considerably worse on this treatment. Wow. It's funny when you read old-timey things and you hear like the measurements and like 1/3 of a grain. How much is a grain? Like,
1/3 of it.
Yeah. Well. So apparently 1/3 of a grain of mercury was 21 milligrams.
How do you?
Yeah. It's so weird when you go back and read some of these things and just how different everything was, but that was normal to them. Yeah. And then you think, why was it changed? Like, when did we?
Because it made no sense.
Yeah, well, valid.
And it was too long.
The second doctor to visit the home was Dr. Dickey, who diagnosed a gastric disorder with a remedy of rhubarb tablets and cream of tartar. This treatment had no effect at all to Thomas's illness. So Dr. Herbert would be the third doctor to treat Thomas. He too would diagnose sore throat with excessive salivation. There's no record of what he prescribed as treatment, but it is known that it was working. Thomas was improving. However, Dr. Herbert's remedy was expensive, and after just 2 weeks, Thomas could no longer afford the treatment and returned to Dr. Dickey, who resumed treatment for the gastric issue. When his condition failed to improve, Elizabeth suggested trying Dr. Bull again. At least his diagnosis was correct. However, Thomas refused, as he blamed Dr. Bull's remedy for how bad he got in the first place, which was the mercury. Mercury made you sick? Who'd have thunk it? At 3 a.m. on September 4th, 1873, Thomas Woolcock was pronounced dead in his home in Moonta, South Australia by Dr. Dickey. He cited the cause of death as pure exhaustion from excessive and prolonged vomiting and purging. At the time, Elizabeth Snell, Thomas's cousin, would tell anyone who would listen that everyone knew of Thomas's wife's relentless search to obtain morphia. Perhaps she had poisoned her husband. As they do in small towns, rumours spread like wildfire, and Dr. Dickey would order an inquest to squash the rumours and clear the widow's name, as he steadfastly agreed his diagnosis was correct and he wanted it proven. So at this point, even the doctor was like, that's crazy. She didn't poison him. He was just very sick. But it would make this story a lot easier to read if everyone's name wasn't Elizabeth. So The inquest was opened in the Woolcock's home, in the same parlour where the couple married only 5 years earlier. In front of 14 jurors, Dr. Dickey would testify on the drugs prescribed to be taken by the deceased. Mr. Opie, the town chemist, would testify of the extent and extremes Elizabeth would go to obtain morphine. Elizabeth Snell also testified on her opinion, I guess. An autopsy was ordered and was performed in the home that night while Elizabeth was made to wait outside. The next day, the inquest resumed, but this time in the Moonta courthouse, where Dr. Dickey would again testify. However, this time stating that mercury poisoning was a strong possibility in the cause of Thomas's death. Dr. Herbert concurred. Dr. Bull admitted to prescribing the mercury pills, but insisted that Mr. Woolcock had only ever taken one. The police would testify to finding a mercury-heavy powder in the home. This circumstantial evidence was all it took for the inquest to agree that Mr. Woolcock was in fact poisoned by his wife. So it was maybe he was poisoned. Yeah, there's mercury in the house. Yeah,
it must
have done it. Yep. When questioned on the day, Elizabeth pleaded not guilty and was arrested and transported to Adelaide Jail. She was provided with a court-appointed young, inexperienced lawyer, and she would remain in the jail where she would await trial for the poisoning murder of her husband. The trial at the Gouger Street Courthouse was again sensational, with hordes of people waiting outside the court. I want to know, in all these cases I've been reading, like these South Australian cases where the back in the 1800s, and the very next day there's people, all these people come from far and wide to the courthouses and to the homes and available there for the inquest. How did they know there was no Facebook?
Yeah. Like how quickly it spread then to what, I don't hear about lots of things now. I guess it's like information overload now. Whereas then it was the only Elizabeth, but they're all named Elizabeth.
But how does something that's happening in Moonta, and then she gets escorted to Adelaide, within days there's everyone at the courthouse? Were people loading up their horses and carts and travelling 20 kilometres to their neighbour's house just and being like, did you hear that Elizabeth murdered Thomas?
Yeah, going house to house just to break the news.
That's it. It travelled so quickly.
Full town meeting immediately.
Yeah, quick, everyone, we've got to be at the courts. So the Crown solicitor would argue that Elizabeth intentionally killed the family dog as an experiment, with the motive being to rid herself of her husband as she was having an affair with the boarder. There was never any evidence of any affair, and it was pure speculation and maybe even just a fabricated attempt to find a motive in such a circumstantial case. At the time, defendants were not allowed to take the stand in their own defence, and even if they were, Elizabeth never would have been allowed because she was a woman. Therefore, Elizabeth was unable to defend any accusations made against her. After only a 3-day trial, the jury of all men took less than 30 minutes to convict Elizabeth of murder with a recommendation of mercy. The judge did not even consider the recommendation and sentenced her to hang.
Jury of all men as well.
Yep. And so quickly. So, I mean, obviously there was less people, so there was less time, but he died on the 4th of September, and by early December, she's already sentenced to hang.
Yeah.
And in those days, they had a 14-day period. So once you were sentenced to hang, 14 days later, you would be hanged. Her hanging date was meant to fall on Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
So they postponed it a week to New Year's. So on the 30th of December, 1873, only 27 years old, Elizabeth was led to the gallows in a flowing white dress carrying a bouquet of posies. She handed a letter to her minister, Reverend James Bickford, and asked for it to be opened after her death, and then she calmly walked up to the gallows.
Wow.
So the letter, I'm going to read it exactly how it was written, because the inaccuracies in it and the way it was written will come back into play shortly. Okay. So Elizabeth's final words read, "This is the last statement and confession of Elizabeth Woolcock to Mr. Bickford. Sir, I was born in the Burra Mine in province of South Australia in the year 1847. My parents' names were John and Elizabeth Oliver, and they were Cornish. They came to this colony, but colony is spelled Coulleney, in 1842, but they went to Victoria in 1851. I was left without the care of a mother at the age of 4 years, and I never saw her again until I was 18. My father died when I was 9 years old, and I had to get my living until I was 18. Then I heard that my mother was alive and residing at Moonta Mine." There's no full stops in this. She wrote me a letter asking me to come to her as she had been very unhappy about me and she was very sorry for what she had done. I thought I should like to see my mother and I have a home like other girls, so I gave up my situation and came to Adelaide. My mother and my stepfather received me very kindly and I had a good home for 2 years. My mother and stepfather were members of Wesleyan Church and I became a teacher in the Sunday school for 2 years. At the end of my time, I first saw my late husband, Thomas Woolcock. I believe my stepfather was a good man, but he was very passionate and determined. My late husband was a widower with 2 children. His wife had been dead about 8 months when I went to keep house for him against stepfather's wishes. I kept house for him for 6 weeks when someone told my stepfather that I was keeping company with Thomas Woolcock. He asked me if it was true, and I told him it was not, but he would not believe me. He called me a liar and told me he would cripple me if I went with him. Any had he not been with the man, but I would go with him now. If he asked me if the drivel said I should not, this took place on the Thursday morning. I saw my husband in the evening and he asked me what was the matter and I told him what had taken place. The following Sunday, he asked me to go with him for a walk instead of going to chapel. I went and my stepfather missed me from the chapel and came to look for me and found us both together. So I was afraid to go home, for as he had said he would break both my legs. I was afraid he would keep his word, as I never knew him to tell a wilful lie. So I went to a cousin's of my husband's and stopped, and my husband asked me if I would marry him, and for my word's sake I did. We were married the next Sunday morning by license after the acquaintance of 7 weeks. I was not married long before I found out what sort of man I had got and that my poor stepfather had advised me for my own good, but it was too late then, so I had to make the best of it. I tried to do my duty to him and the child, but the more I tried, the worse he was. He was fond of drink, but he did not like to part with his money for anything else, and God only knows how ill he treated me. I put up with it for 3 years. During that time, my parents went to Melbourne, and then he was worse than ever. I thought I would rather die than live, so I tried to put an end to myself in several different ways, but thank the Lord I did not succeed in doing so, as he did not treat me any better and I could not live like that. Now there's a full stop. I thought I would leave him and get my own living, so I left him, but he would not leave me alone. He came and fetched me home, and then I stopped with him 12 months and I left him again with the intention of going to my mother. I only took £6 with me. I came down to Adelaide and I stopped with my sister. I was here in Adelaide 6 weeks when he came and fetched me back, and he did not behave no better to me. I tried my best to please him, but I could not. There is no foundation at all for the story about the young man called Pascoe. He was nothing to me, nor I did not give the dog any poison, for I knew what power the poison had, as I took it myself for some months, and I was so ill-treated that I was quite out of my mind, and in an evil hour I yielded to the temptation. He was taken ill at the mine and came home and quarrelled with me, and Satan tempted me, and I gave him what I ought not to, but thought at the time that if I gave him time to prepare to meet his God, I could not do any great crime to send him out of the world. But I see my mistake now.
Wait, so she did poison him?
According to the letter, yeah. Now I thank God he had time to make his peace with his Maker, and I hope I shall meet him in heaven, for I feel that God has pardoned all my sins. He has forgiven me and washed me white in the precious blood of Jesus. I feel this evening that I can rejoice in a loving Saviour. I feel his presence here tonight. He sustains me and gives me comfort under this heavy trial, such as the world can never give. We're nearly done. Dear friend, if I may call you so, I am much obliged to you for your kindness to a poor guilty sinner, but great will be your reward in heaven. I hope I shall meet you there, and hope that God will keep me faithful to the end. O may I be able to say that I live is Christ, but to die will be gain. Bless the Lord, he will not turn away any that come unto him, for he says, come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I feel I have that rest. I hope to die singing victory through the blood of the Lamb. I remain, sir, yours, truly a sinner, saved by grace, Elizabeth Woolcock. Jesus Christ.
Lord almighty.
Her letter was plagued with both spelling and grammatical errors, including even getting her own age wrong. On the 30th of December 1873, Elizabeth Woolcock became the only woman to have ever been hanged in South Australia. She was buried on the grounds of the Adelaide jail, where she remains today. It is now very commonly believed that Elizabeth was in fact innocent of any wrongdoing and confessed for the sake of hanging with a clear conscience, that she had been convinced that if so many people believed she had done it, then maybe she must have. In the notes in Thomas's autopsy, it states he was well cared for. His body was clean and free of bed sores, showing that during a long time bedridden, his wife showed no ill will and cared for the man well. Witnesses have shared that she sat steadfastly by his side and tended to his every need. Her letter itself showed the death of the dog was accidental and that the dog had been treated for ringworm and had been poisoned by licking the mercury-rich powder off its own body. There was also no proof other than Dr. Bull's word that Thomas had only taken one mercury-laden pill. If he had only taken one, why were no pills ever found in the home when they were prescribed to him? Was Elizabeth a patsy in Dr. Bull's attempts to hide the fact that he'd just made a bad call, and his suggestion had in fact killed Mr. Woolcock? Shortly after Elizabeth's death, Dr. Bull was exposed as being a drug addict himself for well over 30 years. He had consumed cocktails of atropine, sulfuric ether, chloroform, and opium in large and frequent doses. He later confessed that he was in fact drug-fuddled when treating Mr. Woolcock, and several witnesses confirmed they heard from Thomas himself how ill Dr. Bull's remedy had made him. Dr. Bull was committed to a psychiatric hospital shortly after the trial and committed suicide only months later.
Oh my God.
Yep. So I think obviously his remedy fucked him, and then he knew he'd made a
because
mistake.
They were all males, it was easy to blame her.
Yep. So Elizabeth's trial was used in talks regarding abolishing the death penalty after letters written by Samuel Way were discovered sometime after the trial. These letters suggested that the medical evidence was unreliable and did not match the testimonies, and that the implication led him to not believe that Elizabeth had poisoned her husband, and that even if she had been guilty, she'd not receive justice based on the available evidence. While Adelaide Jail is no longer used as a jail, it is now a museum hosting history and ghost tours. It has been said by many people who have attended the tours that Elizabeth is still very much within the walls of the jail. There have been multiple sightings of the woman, multiple interactions have been recorded, including the video evidence of balls being thrown at someone poking fun at her grammatical errors in the letter, which is on display in the jail today. So I've actually seen that video. It was Haunted Horizons, where Alison was reading the letter, and at the end of it, she'd said, "Oh my God, like, the grammar of that letter," and she had two cat balls sitting like on the little flap that come out of Elizabeth's cell. So it's like the flap they put the food and stuff on. So she had these two cat balls sitting there. When Alison pokes fun at the letter, the ball from the back lights up and comes flying forward and hits the second ball and knocks both of the balls down the hallway. So she's like, well, someone was pissed off that I made fun of the letter. Yep.
Wow.
So many historians are now fighting for a posthumous exoneration of Elizabeth, and I personally believe that she deserves to be exonerated. We can't change history, however, so either way, I hope she rests peacefully, but she was definitely, like, to be the only woman put to death. I mean, either way, you look back at some of the stuff in her life and she wasn't exactly ideal, like, she was giving drugs to prostitutes to... Yeah,
it didn't look good for her. But then when you come to that, not conclusion, like realization that the doctor did those things, it was so easy for him to throw her under the bus.
That's it.
Just to save his ass.
Even if she had, if he'd said, "Oh no, stop the tablets, they're making me worse," and even if Elizabeth had continued to slip them to him, from all accounts, he was a jerk. He would beat her, he would treat her like shit. Like, the powder that they found in the house that was full of mercury was there to treat the dog's ringworm. So in today's day and age, that would have all been circumstantial, and I don't think she would have even got jail.
They wouldn't have even looked at her at all, really.
And I don't think it ever would have been... Even if they did, I don't think it ever would have been murder.
Definitely not. No. Not even like... I was going to say No, not even that.
No, I reckon it would have been like a cause death by negligence. Or
something like that.
Because now they've got like that beaten spouse syndrome and everything else. So in today's day and age, she definitely wouldn't have been hanged. But I think... by the sounds of that letter, she was done with life anyway. She didn't even care.
She's had multiple attempts at her own life already.
That's
just kind of just she probably would have felt like nothing was getting better. Like all these things kept happening to her.
That's it.
In different periods of her life.
Everything that I read and watched all said that she was like peaceful and blissful walking up to the gallows.
Yeah.
So she was just happy to go.
Yeah.
She made her peace with God. You know, was like, yep, I'm gonna go and
I'm done.
Yeah.
Fuck yous all.
Yeah. So she's buried at the prison, and the people that were buried at the prison are buried upright so that they can't rest.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it was everywhere, but I know in South Australia, if you died a prisoner, you were property of the state. So your family couldn't come and collect your body. You were buried on the grounds at the prison. So obviously she's still there. She always has a red rose on her grave. Oh. Someone always puts a rose there, whether it's the same person or whether it's multiple people that
just keep putting roses.
Yeah, she's always got a rose. But it's just
always
there.
One single rose.
Yeah. Wow. And she's literally just marked by a EW on the wall. That's all that she is. So they don't have gravestones or anything. They just have their initials painted above where they're buried.
Oh shit. I would have walked straight past that, because is that in the Adelaide like jail as in with the G?
Yeah.
AAL? We did a zombie thing in there.
Yeah.
We would have ran straight past her grave.
Well, no, actually, I've always wanted to go do the ghost tour at the jail.
It would sound really interesting.
And apparently she's seen quite often. Like people will see her as they go down a hallway. They'll just see like the tail end of her walking past. So they'll just see like the flowing dress. And some of the stuff that I watch all say they feel peaceful when she comes past. So she doesn't seem to be tormented.
Not like
Yeah. She's just
peaceful.
Yeah.
Well,
done and over with, and just doesn't like people talking shit about her grandma.
Grandma. Oh, that was one time.
She's like, you write one letter
in the heat of the moment.
Right. So I was about to be hung, guys. Like, excuse me for not using full stops. But to be fair, I almost died reading the bloody letter because I wasn't allowed to breathe anywhere.
Yeah, Jesus. Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's
That's
another
really interesting. So the only female to have been hung.
Yep.
Holy shit. We actually went in the gallows.
Yeah.
We had to find a key in there.
Oh, wow.
It was pitch black in there, and everyone knew that there'd be zombies in there.
Yeah.
And my husband hid behind the door, and he came out of one of the little rooms or whatever's in there. I don't know if you've been in there before.
Nah, I've only been to the jail, Adelaide jail once, but I want to go so badly.
I mean, I'm sure it was beautiful. Like architecturally, we ran through the whole lot.
I went and saw The Conjuring there. Had like
wow,
movie
that would have
night.
been good.
Yeah, that was really cool. And it was the one with the nun.
Yeah.
And you just like sat on beanbags out in the grass area and watched it. It was up on a projector screen.
That's cool.
And they had like a little, I don't know, horror thing. So you'd go down, like you quickly went through the cells and stuff, but it wasn't like it was all rushed because people were chasing you with chainsaws and shit like that.
Yeah. You're not really looking at things.
That's it. But I love old buildings like that, so I definitely want to go and do it again.
Doing like a proper historical one would be good, because they'd give you lots of information and you're not in a rush to get past.
Yeah, and I'd love to do like a historical tour and a ghost tour. I'd love to do both, because it'd be very interesting to see.
Definitely, like a nighttime one.
Yeah.
We need to put that on our list to do. I need to start a list for things we have to do.
I know, because we're always saying, oh, we've got to do that, and then we don't.
We said we're going to do a medium and a...
Yeah.
But yeah, we need a list of things.
Have you been to Adelaide Jail and experienced Elizabeth? Tell us about it.
Yeah. Do you have any photos?
Yeah, especially if we can use them. If you've got photos and you're happy for us to repost them, send them to us on Instagram. It's probably the best place.
Yes.
And then we can reshare them and tell your story.
Uyghur podcast.
Yes.
On everything.
Yes.
That you can think of.
Yep. Thanks for listening in again, guys. You know what to do. Follow us everywhere, and we'll see you next fortnight.
Yes. Thanks for wandering the crime scene with us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.